The brightly lit office floor ran with a chilling precision, until Jessica Miller suddenly stopped in the middle of the hallway and pointed straight at a janitor. "Stop!" The entire space froze with her voice. Evelyn Carter stood still, her hand still gripping the mop handle. The gray uniform made her almost blend into the background, but her eyes didn't, calm in a way that didn't belong in the rising tension around her. Jessica stepped closer, her heels striking the floor with sharp, cold rhythm. "What do you think you're doing here?" She didn't wait for an answer. She yanked the name badge from Evelyn's chest and threw it to the floor. "You're fired. Effective immediately." No one spoke. A few people glanced over, then quickly looked away. Here, everyone understood one thing very clearly. Never stand on the side of someone without power. Evelyn didn't bend down to pick up the badge. She didn't explain herself either. She simply lifted her head and looked straight at Jessica, not in defiance, not in fear. "Are you sure?" Jessica let out a laugh and turned away as if the matter was already settled, and in that exact moment, she had just fired the wrong person, and there was no way back. Jessica had barely turned when a series of urgent notifications echoed across the floor. Not one, but dozens. Screens lit up all at once. One person opened an email and froze. Another leaned in and stopped cold. "Is this real?" The voice was quiet, but enough to shift the entire room. Jessica frowned and turned back. "What now?" No one answered her immediately, only their eyes, one by one, shifting from their screens to Evelyn. No more contempt, no more indifference. Jessica strode over, grabbed the mouse, and pulled the screen toward herself. She read. 1 second, 2 seconds. The smile on her face vanished. "That's impossible." She scrolled down, then up again. The owner's name appeared clearly. Evelyn Carter. The air froze. Evelyn still stood there, her arms relaxed at her sides, offering no explanation because none was needed. Jessica shook her head, her voice tightening. "This is fake. Someone's playing—" "No." Evelyn spoke, not loudly, but enough to cut through everything. One word, and the entire room fell silent. She stepped forward, not fast, but no one dared stand in her way. "That notice was sent from a high-level internal system," she said, looking straight at Jessica. "A level you've never had access to." Jessica stiffened. An IT staff member in the corner muttered, "That level? Only the board has—" He stopped, because everyone already understood the rest. Evelyn didn't stop. She reached the desk and turned the large screen toward everyone. A file opened. Numbers appeared. Contract names, cash flows, signatures. No explanation was needed. Someone gasped, "That's the payment that was held last month." Evelyn gave a slight nod. 3 payments withheld without reason. She scrolled. A revenue report altered before submission. The air grew heavier. Jessica stepped back half a pace. "You don't understand how things work here." Evelyn didn't even look at her. 12 employees worked overtime and were never recorded. A voice from behind spoke, shaking but clear. "We reported it." Another followed. "You told us to stay quiet if we didn't want to lose our jobs." Jessica spun around. You should stop." Evelyn's voice dropped this time, low, heavy. Not a request, but a warning. Jessica fell silent. No one in the office stood with her anymore. Evelyn tilted her head slightly, looking at her as if at something already obvious. "You weren't exposed because you were wrong," she said, pausing just long enough for the weight to settle. "You were exposed because you thought no one would dare look you in the eye." The words dropped like weight. The room didn't dare breathe. Jessica stood there for the first time with nothing to say. Evelyn opened another file. Emails appeared, a long chain of exchanges, timestamps, content, senders, all pointing to one person: Jessica. A staff member whispered, "That's real internal mail." Evelyn didn't look away. "You signed it. You sent it. You knew." Jessica shook her head, her voice weakening. I didn't mean to." Evelyn cut her off. "You knew exactly what you were doing." Silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Then, click. All screens suddenly switched to another interface, the internal management system. A line appeared. "Administrative access locked." The office erupted in murmurs. An IT employee jumped to his feet. "Wait! The system's locked!" Jessica turned, panic breaking through. "What?" "No one can make changes anymore, except the highest level." Evelyn stood still. No explanation. No need. The shock spread faster than any words. Jessica looked around. She had nothing left. No access, no control, no one on her side. She stepped back again, her voice cracking. What are you doing?" Evelyn looked at her, calm in a way that felt almost terrifying. "Closing what you broke." Jessica shook her head, almost whispering, "No, that's not possible." Evelyn stepped closer. Now only a few steps remained between them. "You thought," Evelyn said, "that if you were loud enough, everything would be right." She held her gaze. "But truth doesn't work that way." Jessica looked around one last time. No one avoided her eyes anymore. No one lowered their heads. The people who had once stayed silent now looked at her like a stranger. And then she understood. It wasn't that Evelyn had changed this room. This room had already changed. Today was just the day it stopped staying silent. Jessica swallowed hard, her voice barely audible. Who are you?" Evelyn met her gaze without hesitation. "The person you just fired," she said, pausing just long enough for it to sink in, "is the one who just signed the decision ending your authority." No one spoke. No one moved. Only one truth now sat in the middle of the room, and no one could take it away. Jessica was still standing there, but she was no longer the one controlling the room. Her hands trembled slightly, her eyes searching for something to hold on to. But no one looked at her the same way anymore. Evelyn didn't speak right away. She let the silence stretch, long enough for everyone to understand this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was the end. "Stand up," Evelyn said calmly, leaving no room for refusal. Jessica slowly stood, her steps uneven, her high heels no longer making her taller than anyone else. "What do you want?" Her voice rasped. Evelyn looked straight at her. "I want you to take responsibility." Jessica forced a laugh, but couldn't hold it. "Because of a few files? You think you can conclude that?" Evelyn turned to the screen and tapped lightly. A recording played. Jessica's voice echoed clearly. "Just hold that payment. They won't dare do anything. If anyone asks, say it's a system error." The air tightened again. No one spoke. Only the truth stood there, undeniable. Jessica stepped back. "That doesn't prove anything." "Enough." Evelyn's voice cut through, quiet but absolute. "You're not losing everything because of me. You're losing it because of how you treated people you thought didn't matter." That sentence stopped her completely. No more arguments. No more anger. An employee stepped forward. "You forced us to alter the numbers." Another added, "You said if we didn't do it, we'd be fired." The voices followed, one after another. Not loud, but enough to shatter everything Jessica had built. She turned, panic rising. "You're all putting this on me?" No one answered. This time, they didn't have to be afraid. Evelyn stepped closer. "No one is putting anything on you. They're just saying what they've endured." Jessica clenched her fists. "I can fix this. I'll fix everything." Evelyn looked at her for a long moment. "Some things can be fixed, but some things are consequences." She turned slightly toward HR. "Please proceed with Ms. Miller according to protocol." The HR representative stepped forward with documents. "Termination is effective immediately." Jessica stared at the paper, her voice breaking. "No, wait, Not yet." Evelyn's single word felt colder than anything. She held her gaze. "This doesn't end with you losing your job. The legal department has received the full file. What you've done will be handled according to regulation." Jessica went still. No more words. No more escape. Only consequences moving toward her. HR gestured, and she walked away, slowly, heavily. No one watched for long, because everything had already ended before she even left. The atmosphere in the room shifted. It wasn't tense anymore, but it wasn't the same either. Evelyn turned back to everyone. No titles, no distance, just one person speaking to others. "I know you chose silence, not because you agreed, but because you thought you had no choice." A few eyes lowered. "But starting today, you have a voice, and no one has the right to silence you anymore." There was no applause, only quiet change. Someone standing a little straighter, someone lifting their head, someone no longer avoiding another's gaze. Evelyn looked around one last time, then turned and walked down the hallway where she had once been invisible. Everything looked the same, the light still spilling across the floor, the sound of keyboards still filling the air. But the way people saw each other had changed. The elevator doors opened. Evelyn paused for a second without turning back. "Power isn't about standing above others," she said, her voice just enough to reach those behind her. "It's about how you treat those who have nothing." The doors closed, and behind them everyone stood still, not out of fear, but because for the first time they understood that the person they once overlooked was the one who could change everything. The story ends, but its echo doesn't fade right away. In the days that followed, the office looked the same lights, the same desks, the same rhythm of work. But something fundamental had shifted. Conversations became more direct. Things once ignored were now spoken aloud. Not because people suddenly became braver, but because they realized that silence can be the very thing that allows wrongdoing to grow. Evelyn didn't appear to be noticed. She didn't need recognition. She didn't revisit what had happened. She simply did what should have been done from the beginning, putting everything back where it belonged. And that quiet composure made people think more than any explanation ever could. Some changes aren't loud, but they are deeply felt. One person speaks up when something is wrong. Another no longer looks away from injustice. Small things like that, but they are what truly create change. Life doesn't always give second chances, but it always remembers how you treat others, especially when you think they don't matter. Some people don't need to show their strength. They quietly build it until no one can ignore it anymore. And maybe the most unsettling question isn't what happened, but this. If you had been in that room, would you have stayed silent? Or would you have spoken up? If this story made you pause, even for a second, hit like and share it so others can hear it too. And don't forget to subscribe to Real Life Stories New, because one day, you might realize which side you once stood on, and it may not be the one you're ready to admit.